good evening. Good to see each one of you out tonight. A couple announcements before we get started. A couple that are not in your bulletin, and then a few that are. Tomorrow night is the piano recital here in the auditorium at 6 o'clock. And then May 20th, Friday night, is the teen outreach service at the Open Door Mission. That'll be at 5 o'clock instead of 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock. And Brother Williams said if it runs later than that, they'll have the kids give the parents a call. So 5 to 9 on Friday. May 28th, the OBA graduation here at 2 o'clock. And then the 29th will be the Lord's Supper and the PM service on that Sunday. And then a few weeks after that, June 9th through the 11th, is the guys' camp out. And if you haven't already talked to Brian J. about that, make sure and talk to him. You'll enjoy it. And don't miss out on that also. So I believe that's all the announcements, and let's open in prayer. Lord, we thank you for this time that we can get together here in the middle of the week and set aside everything else that's going on in our lives so that we can fellowship with one another and worship you, and learn from your word. I pray that you would bless the service tonight. Just be with us and encourage and strengthen us, I pray. In your name, amen.
We take your hymnals and stand with me and turn to hymn 420. We'll sing all 4 verses of I Gave My Life for Thee, hymn 420. I gave my life for Thee, my precious blood I shed, that Thou mightst ransom me and quick me from the dead. I gave my life to Thee, what hast Thou given for me? I gave my life for Thee, what hast Thou given for me? My Father's house sublime, my glory circled torn. I left for earthly night, for wandering sad and lone. I left it all for Thee, hast Thou left aught for me? I left it all for Thee, hast Thou left aught for me? I suffered much for Thee, more than Thy tongue can tell, of interest agony to rescue Thee from hell. I've borne it all for Thee, what hast Thou borne for me? I've borne it all for Thee, what hast Thou borne for me? And I have brought to Thee, down from my home above, salvation full and free, my pardon and my love. I bring rich gifts to Thee, what hast Thou brought for me? I bring rich gifts to Thee, what hast Thou brought to me? Or you may be seated as you turn back a few pages to hymn 526. We'll sing all 3 verses of Oh Say But I'm Glad, hymn 526. There is a song in my heart today, something I've never had. Jesus has taken my sins away. Oh, say but I'm glad. Oh, say but I'm glad, I'm glad. Oh, say but I'm glad.
Okay, with Pastor being out of town tonight, we have our missionary, Brother Pat Campbell, here. You come on ahead. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's good to see everyone, familiar faces, and it's been a while since I was here. But when I was here, I had the chance to share about the missions class that we started, and we're going to show some pictures, a PowerPoint slide presentation, and you're going to get to see that class. So I remember some of the things that I covered and some of the lessons that I taught were kind of first time through things. And I know I've said this, but I really want to thank you for allowing me to do that, because I was kind of figuring things out in the direction that the class was going to go. And it was an absolute blessing to be able to present 5 times here, and then to be able to make some adjustments to the class and make sure that it was appropriate for the students. But we're going to go ahead and look at some slides. But the very first thing that I'd like to say is that Wendy is not here tonight because she's at Awana. She's involved with that ministry, and it was really important for her to be there. So my wife Wendy is not here, but she sends her regards and says hello. Now, most of you probably know the history of Westwood Heights Baptist Church and our Peru ministry at the seminary at Utabamba. But for those of you that don't, you'll be brought up to date. And for those of you that do, I can answer any questions and do the best I can to bring you up to date on how things are going, because there are some very significant changes taking place. One is in the life of Wendy and I, but the more important one is in the life and the journey of CEBIC, the seminary there, Seminary Evangelical Bautista Independiente del Cusco. I'll keep saying CEBIC as the acronym. But our Peru ministry has come to an end, and that's sometimes a little bit difficult to say. We've been going down since 2021. It's been just a fascinating journey. I just can't even, express. I knew I was going to get a little sentimental here, but I can't even express just the thankfulness that we have had for lots of people allowing this ministry, for us to be a part of the ministry, to be able to teach in that missionary environment was just an absolute blessing. And I continue to teach for a couple more modules through Zoom. And I won't give you the whole story, but that's exactly what I said to our former assistant pastor, Pastor Phil Tilson. I went to him back in 1999 while I was still teaching and coaching away at a public school in Council Bluffs, Lewis Central, and I thought I'd be trying to figure out how to win Friday night football games the rest of my life, but the Lord redirected things. But I went to Pastor Phil and I said, Pastor Phil, I would like to teach in a missionary environment. That's all I said. And he kind of smiled. If you know Pastor Phil, he's a good man. And he said, let's pray about that for 3 months. He said, let's pray about that for 3 months. And if you still feel the same and you feel the Lord is still leading, come on back and we'll talk some more. And it's not as if Wendy and I hadn't been, praying about it and thinking about it, and because we had loved missions in one of the former church I was in. We just really appreciated missionaries, tried to get them in the house and try to get our kids to know them and so on. And so Pastor Phil went back to him those 3 months later, and he, I think what he did is he probably contacted missionaries that the church was supporting at the time. But to summarize, I got a phone call from Tim Watley, who most everyone knows here. Tim called and basically said, what can you teach, and come on down. And so that was 2000 we talked. He said, come on down for 2021 school year. We have 3-week modules. And I said, okay, I think that we can do that. He said, what do you want to teach? This was kind of interesting because I have a science background and my advanced degree is in science and all that. And so I wasn't trained theologically. I taught Sunday school for a long time, and I loved the Lord, and I loved to study and get ready for my class. But at that time, I had no seminary or formal theological training. And so he says, what would you want to teach? And because it had to match their curriculum. It had to be something that was in their curriculum. And so we talked back and forth, and I said, well, I'm teaching Baptist church history right now in my Sunday school class. If you know J.M. Carroll, Trail of Blood, if you know that's kind of a minority view of Baptist church history, but we could talk about that sometime. But that's what I was teaching, and he said, yeah, come on down, do that. And so we went down in 2001, and it was just tremendous. Just had a tremendous time, made a lot of dumb mistakes with things that I can't really share right now, but culturally I just did some silly things. And then in 2002, it was totally, I like to say this because usually I get a little laugh out of it. Some people say, you put things on the back burner. This wasn't even on the stove. We weren't even going to go back at all. We just had no desire to go back at that time. In our church situation, we had taken on some missionaries from Cambodia. And so we went with our senior pastor to Cambodia in 2002. And we went there, and it was a tremendous experience. And I think the Lord was, girding us up because what was going to happen. So we had that. We went to Cambodia, learned some things there, came back. And then Tim called again and said, hey, that class you taught in 2001 was an every other year class. Can you come down in 2003? I said, yeah, let's do it. So I went down, and we taught, and then we've gone every year since except for the 2021 COVID year. And so that's how we got started, and we just thank the Lord for so many things. He's allowed us to use some of those experiences that we've had, our background. Wendy was an activities director for her whole secular career, and she just loves Awana. She's so organized, and I always tease that neither one of us was the greatest with our language skills, but she could organize and get people to understand her and follow her in her class, in her Bible studies on campus with her kids clubs and all that, just because she could do that. And the Lord gifted her with that, and she used it on the other end in Peru. And so that's where we're at. And we've come to the end of our time in Peru. That all those years that we went to teach and minister, and we're wrapping things up. I'm still involved in a couple committees by Zoom, and I'd like to share a little bit about the transition that the seminary is making because it's very significant, and you have been a wonderful part of it in so many ways. But I'll say some things as I go through the slides, and if I don't cover something that you would like explained, please ask, because this is my last go-around in trying to help you understand what's going on in Peru. And, of course, when Tim and Barb come back, they'll bring you up to date. But I'd like to make sure, you're well-versed on how the seminary is doing. Well, that's our seminary. That's the chapel. Some of the guys that have been down there recognize that building. We've had folks come down from different churches to do different things on that. That is the hub of our campus. That's where we teach our classes. That's where we have chapel. So many wonderful things have happened there. Next, please. And we wanted to bring you kind of up to date. We were there this year, and these are our students and some staff in there. And you can kind of see, well, not the brightest thing, but Wendy and I over there on the left as you look up there. Most of the students are of Inca, they're called Quechua folks, but they're of Inca descent. And most of them are bilingual in Spanish and Quechua. And the young lady in the middle is Bolivian. Many Bolivians have left their country. It's a nightmare there, the way that they describe it. And by the thousands they've left, and they've come over to Peru. And Peru hasn't opened up their arms, but they're very careful about bringing them in and making sure they become legal and they go through all the process. And Dolly has. And she's a wonderful young lady, wants to serve the Lord, and she's attending the seminary. Next, please. And this is where Wendy and I, this is where we really, my heart is in teaching and always has been, and Wendy was a teacher too. But when we had a chance to channel funds from people that wanted to be a part of the ministry, this is where it went primarily. It went to the work-study scholarships. And this church, and I know I've said this a lot, and I don't want to overdo it, but this is the only church that gives to the work-study scholarship to the seminary, which is an absolute godsend in so many ways, because we can count on that money. We know that it's going to be there, and we can plan, and students can work, and that's just an example. And we wanted to show you some examples of where your funds have went. What's interesting about this one, this picture is probably about 4 years old. This was early on in the building of the dorm, and it was a very important building for us so that we could kind of keep up with the students having a decent place to live and so on. And the next picture shows, okay, they're working on the rooms, and they're just making progress. This is the work-study scholarship. Here's another one, shows students working away. And they get paid through the work-study scholarship fund. They get paid, and the money goes towards their room, board, and tuition. And I always say $500. It's probably closer to $600 now, but it costs about $500 to $600 for room, board, and tuition for a whole year. And so it's really not that expensive by our standards, but we are blessed to have the funds to let our students do some kind of work on our campus. And it isn't just the dorm. There's tons of things to do on our 7-acre campus. And as a result, anybody that wants to work, we can pay them to work and to pay for their schooling. Next, please. Then that's the dorm. It's not the finished product, but it looks pretty good. And that was really pretty close to being used. That's probably about a year ago. And now it's in full use. Next, please. Some more examples. These are some more examples of things going on in campus where students get paid to do some kind of work. Next, please. And I wanted to show you a golden oldie with Tim and Barb. This is one of the first ones, and of course there's Brianna in the middle down there, and of course she got married just this past Saturday to a young man. I'm going to tell you more. Caleb, as you know, he's jumping around and things and walls and all that. And Flor and Cesar and Freddie. Oh, my goodness. Fernando, I'm sorry. Yeah. I said Freddie? Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Freddie's not in that picture, is he? But next, please. There's another one that I wanted to bring you up to date on. The Watleys, and of course you've probably read their newsletters. But this guy here has been, I could talk about him the whole time, I really could. And I know I shared a little bit last time I was here. But Brother Marco, 6 years ago, he took one of my classes. He took Wendy's class. Very bright young man. Was kind of searching, he's kind of trying to find his way in life. And Mom and Dad I guess this is fair to say, Mom and Dad were kind of pretty typical Peruvian parents. They wanted to see their child kind of go up, the ladder. That was really, really important to Dad. And so to become an attorney is really prestigious. And so they sent him off to a Christian college, not a Bible college, a Christian college in Mexico. And he went there for 4 years, graduated, and he was going to come back and be a lawyer. But he has a heart of gold, and during those years when he would come back, he would come to the seminary and he would translate for different people. He'd translate for me, and he translated my classes. I can't remember exactly all of them, but at least Revelation twice and Daniel a couple times and Acts. And I'll tell you what, he asked more questions than the students did. We had a lot of talks after. We'd go to a meal, and he had a voracious appetite to learn about things of the Lord. And he's just as sharp as can be. He's taken his MDiv online from Faith in English. So if you know anything about taking a Master's of Divinity, that's not easy anyways, let alone taking it in English and then online. So he's just a very bright young man, unpretentious, just very much enjoy working with him. He's on the end, and he organizes, gets my tests ready, quizzes. You know, he's got to facilitate all that, and he does a wonderful job. And of course, he just got married this past on the 14th to Brianna. Next, please. Okay, Caleb. The fingernails polish. He's different color this year, but he's gone with blue. No, that's. I guess they're engaged, and we wanted to. You probably knew that already, but he's grown up from that little guy, and now he's a big guy, and. I'm not sure if they set a date or anything like that. Next. Okay, and I had to show this one because this is, I don't think that's so funny. What's so funny about that? No, I'm just teasing. This was an awesome trip, and I could tell you stories about that trip. That was just a wonderful time. But you recognize those folks, and it was 2003, right? 2003. Next, please. Okay. That ride in the upper left-hand corner, I laugh about it so many times. But we had a good time. It was a good trip. God honored it in so many ways. The right-hand corner, I guess I'm not sure if we're in Kiteni or Kiabamba or wherever we are, but look at Daubry there. She's kind of got her cute little hat on, and everybody thought, you know, their hair was really kind of special. They're not used to anything other than black. It's just Peruvians don't have any different color hair. They just don't. And so they always thought that was pretty special, and they'd come up and look at it and touch it and so on. Next. They were in a church. I can't remember which church that was, but Alexis is playing away there. It looks like they're singing a song. Next, please. Oh, my goodness. That front guy looks like, is he here? Is Dave here? No, he's in the back. Man, that guy would take charge. Look at him. That is a really neat picture. The young man to the left of David, we've gotten to know him really well. He's got a ministry with children with his wife, and that's at Machu Picchu, I'm sure, someplace in Machu Picchu. But I guess what I wanted to show by showing you some of these pictures, it just shows you the connection that we have. Okay, next. Then Romans 1:12, that is, that I may be comforted together with you by the mutual faith, both of you and me. And we have that common bond of understanding the needs in Peru, and you've been supporting it for years and years. Next, please. And then I wanted to show you some updated pictures from this year. This is the not the missiology class, but I think this was the biology 1 class. The classes that I taught there were biology 1 and biology 2, and Acts and Daniel and Revelation and Baptist church history. And it was a neat quick story about how biology even got started. We had typhoid on campus back on the old campus, must have been 10, 12 years ago, and it hit. And they had to quarantine, and that was kind of a new thing. Now, as you know, it's changed. But back there, 10 years ago, quarantining the campus was like, it was like the end of the world. Students couldn't come and go. We couldn't have class. Wendy and I had our shots. We could leave the campus. But if you were on campus, you couldn't leave if you didn't have your shots. So, of course, after that happened, everybody's talking about, what could we have done to prevent typhoid? And we had some evening classes, more like kind of like little seminars with the students, and we made some changes so that wouldn't happen again. We didn't want to get typhoid again and get people sick and so on. And so they knew that I had a biology background, so Pastor Percy, the Dean of Studies, just asked, could you have a class on health, biology, we'll call it biology, and you teach our students about how not to get sick, and then they can use that in their ministries, and it could be a big help. And we've been doing that ever since. He really appreciated it, because most Peruvians do not see cause and effect. They don't see a virus, they don't see a bacteria, they don't see fungus. They don't quite grasp how those things lead to diseases. They have a lot of other explanations that were strange to me and are still strange to me today. And I still don't understand a lot of the things that they describe how they get sick. But we did our best to help them understand. We taught about the cell, we taught about bacteria and viruses, we looked at pictures and we built models. And so that's where we are on campus today while we're teaching Biology 1. And Biology 2 was basically a Peruvian first aid class. We did a lot of first aid stuff, but we only had certain things that we could use. But this class, I'm sure now as I kept thinking, this was Biology 1, and these are first year students, and I have such fond memories of them. Okay, next one, please. And these are some more pictures of our students in different classes. Missiology would have been another one, and probably Daniel. Next, please. In the class, this missiology class that I had gone through a couple lessons, 5 lessons with you folks about a year ago, one of the things that I did that I was excited about doing, and I did it, and this is it, that's probably why I'm showing it to you, is that we used the website, the Joshua Project, and some of you had heard of that, and that's where we got a lot of our data and a lot of our statistics. And one of the things that we discovered was the unreached people groups, the reached people groups, and just the different categories that there are throughout the world, and the 1040 window and all that kind of neat stuff. And my oldest daughter, April, gave me this idea because she did it in one of her classes in Costa Rica. She's a missionary there. And I ended up asking her and Wendy one Christmas that she came home to do this for me. And they did. And to summarize, there's like 9,000 names on those sheets of paper. They're printed off, and they're taped together, and they're cut. They're cut so they're narrower instead of an 8.5 by 11. It's kind of like that. But they put them all together and all the tape, put it on a scroll, and then we unrolled it. And it rolled, and to get close to 9,000 names, you can see. And the students were just fascinated. They were looking up Peru and all the different Quechua people, unreached people groups that there are. Tim could tell you this better than I could, but I was told one time there's 21 different dialects of Quechua, and they would need 21 different Bibles in order to get that in the language of that group of Quechua folks. I know you may think, well, dialect is pretty close to, they're pretty close to each other, but no, it doesn't work that way. And I'm not a linguistic by any means. But they had to go out the door, and there it was. Next one, please. And this is a ministry that you were helping and didn't actually, I don't think I ever announced this or said anything. But one of the things that I thoroughly enjoyed being able to do over the years, the 20 years of being there, was help our students and pastors with books. They just can't afford them, and when they see them, they're so delighted. And here's one of my charity. I don't think you could use this one, but I used this a lot, and it worked. Believe me, it worked. I would, at the start of class, whatever it is, Revelation, Daniel. For instance, in this Daniel class, I get through ministry funds. If I say I, it's the wrong pronoun. But I would give them a book with ministry funds that we have gotten from folks like yourself, and we purchase books and then make them available to our students. And in the Daniel class, we would use Tim LaHaye's Prophecy Study Bible. I don't know if some of you know that or not. It's just a wonderful book with articles, and everything that you basically talk about when you teach Daniel and Revelation is in that book. It's in Spanish, and so it was a tremendous blessing. There it is in the middle up there, on the lower left in the middle of the book. And that became our textbook. We did some other things from EBI, the Editorial Bautista Independiente, the book publishing company. But that book was, that Prophecy Study Bible was such a blessing. And it was because of ministry funds we were able to do that. Now, in the lower left, those are books that we would get to our students. Plus, we would try to get books, commentaries into the hands of pastors. Pastors there are poor, they don't have resources, and so we try to get them practical things that they could use in their ministry, help them make sermons, help them do Bible studies, whatever the case might be. The one on the left, some of you may recognize it. If you know the Spanish, of course you would, but it's the big one. It's just a tremendous book, Wilmington Study Guide to the Bible. If you know that book, it has tons of stuff in there that can help you prepare Sunday school classes, Bible studies, and sermons. And so we would get this, we would give that, that was a graduation gift to our students. So when they graduated, they would get the Wilmington Study Guide to the Bible. On the right-hand side is the one that all those pastors up there are holding up. As you can see, it's Wiersbe's, the B series. If you know the B series from Wiersbe, and there's all of the New Testament books in there. So, be strong or be courageous for the different books of the New Testament. And that's a book that we got into their hands. And then the smaller one up front that's lying down in the front there, it was for the Quechua, was for the wives of the pastors. Then over here, this is another fun thing I got to do, is that over the years, I always had extra books from class, or we'd bring something down and we'd give the students a book in chapel, but kind of accumulated a lot of extra ones here and there, one or two from this. But we had a kind of like it was our last couple of weeks there, we had a book giveaway time, and so the students could choose, and you could see them looking trying to figure out which book they were going to take. Next one, please. This was very meaningful to us, as you can imagine, seeing our students graduate, go out and start churches, or become a part of a church and invigorate it and give it some solid teaching, because they just don't have, the Campo pastors just don't have solid teaching. They don't have a background. They don't, they're self-taught, and if they're self-taught wrong, it can be kind of a mess, really, to be honest with you. And here's just a quick example of that. We went to a convention. They call it a convention, way up in the mountains, and we were there to be the guest speakers. There were a couple other missionaries there, and we were there. And one of the things that they do at these conventions, and I didn't know this at the time, is all the pastors, come in, they'll sit and they'll listen to the guest speakers talk or have their messages. But one of the things they do is they have question and answer time. It's just a tradition that they just do all the time. And so what they do is they write out questions, the pastors sometimes beforehand, sometimes right then they write it, and they bring them up and they come up front, and then they dish them out to the speakers. In this case, there was three missionaries, three of us that were there. And so we were given these questions, and we get to look at them real quick, and then we read them, and then we answer the questions. That was what we did. And I always remember one of the questions that I got that was one of those kind of like, you just kind of go, you're not sure what to say. You're not sure, but you got to say something. Because they think missionaries know a lot. And you could fool them for so long, but no, I'm just teasing. But the question was this. Here was the question. Why would a good pastor leave a good church for not a good church? And that's all it was. It was very simple, and I didn't understand the question. And some of you may know Ken Lovell. He's a big guy, but anyways. I turned around and I said, Ken, and I mumbled the question to him. You have any idea what they're talking about here? A good pastor leaving a good church? And he said, I don't know. He said, I'm not sure either. And he should have. He's been there a long time. But fortunately, I'm up there in front of everybody just like this, and kind of not sure what to say. I just did not know what to say. And I said, one of the fastest prayers of my life, I said, Lord, I don't know what is this? And then he gave me, and I think it's 2 Timothy 2:10. I'm not, it might be 1 Timothy 2:10. But it's about Demas. You remember Demas? Remember what Paul said about Demas? One of the saddest things you're ever going to read. Because what made it so sad is that Demas had worked with Paul side by side. He had been with him, and Paul had said nice things about him up until that point. Not grandiose things, but he had said things that were complimentary to Demas. Here's Paul in prison. He's at the end of his life. He's writing to Timothy his last letter. I believe it was 2 Timothy, so that would have been his last letter. And you know what he says in there? Maybe some of you know. But it's one of the saddest words that you're ever going to get. And if Demas was a believer, and a lot of people think he was, he's going to regret this, and he's going to be told, he's going to be told at the judgment seat of Christ that you're going to get into heaven, Demas, but what you did to Paul was wrong. But basically Paul said this. He said, Demas has left me for the world. That's all Paul said. He was saying things about other people, and he said, Demas has left me for the world. And I'm not sure if I had read that or it was a Bible study or something, but that stuck with me because my answer to those folks on this question was this. Why would a good pastor leave a good church for a bad church? The only thing that I could come up with, and I'm convinced it was correct because I wouldn't have thought of this myself. My memory's not that good. And I said, because the world pulled him away from you, and the bottom line was, I found out he got more money at another church. That's why this pastor left. He left a good church with good people so that he could get more money. And if that's not getting sucked in by the world, I don't know what is. And that's what happened to Demas. And that's why when we see our students go out and start churches and they have a background, they have training, it's just absolutely heartwarming to see that. And that's what this is. 2 examples. Those are 3 former students up on the top. The one on the right, Javier, he was in the States for a bit. Those 2 were interning at the time with him, but they all 3 are graduates, and they're out and about. The one on the left is a missionary pastor. Javier still has a church at a place called Tica Tica outside of Cusco. Constantine, I'm not sure, kind of lost track of Constantine. He's not in Cusco anymore. Down in the bottom is another church with a number of our students there. Good heavens. I like to tease, I could be a center forward on their basketball team. Look at that. I don't do that too much except with my grandchildren until they get to 7th grade. But I kind of stick out above them a little bit. But that's another church. Next, please. This is just a pastor, Alexis Huyaka, and he's a graduate of the seminary. Sonia, both students, both graduated. They're out, started a church. Just wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Next. These are just some more examples of former students. Juan Quispe on the left, and I believe that's Javier. Yes, that's Javier. And just showing the bodies growing. Next, please. This is Rolando. If you follow Tim and Barb in Kiteni, if you read their newsletter, this is Rolando. This is who they work with all the time. And when you see their newsletter, this is the young man that's there. He's a graduate of the seminary now, probably 10, maybe 15 years ago. And he is just an outstanding young man. He is, him and his wife, Gladys, she's a graduate of the seminary too. Next, please. Douglas. I wish Dave was here because Dave had an impact on his life and maybe in more ways than he really knows. But Dave's Sunday school class supported him for half a school year, for half a year. And so I think it was like $250 the Sunday school class came up with. But anyways, Douglas married Raquelita, the young lady to her right, both graduates of the seminary. They started a church, and this is their first anniversary, which I think is like 2 years old now. But Douglas, Westwood Heights, particularly that Sunday school class, had an impact. Next, please. There's a nice picture. Always tease about him eating good. He was a thin guy when he was in campus, but he's got chubby cheeks. He's eating good. Next. This is another church plant, Josue, in the lower right-hand corner. He's a fairly recent grad, I believe 3 or 4 years ago. But Moquegua, he's down in southern Peru, close to the Bolivian border, in a place called Puno. And anyways, Grandpa, 3-generation, just an awesome picture. Next. And then Wendy, just as I told you, she just does wonderful things with the kids and the ladies, and she's always gotten them doing these things. One thing the ladies love to do there is they like to make cards. They like to personalize birthday cards, Christmas cards, anniversaries, and they try to make them up ahead, and they put their own personal touches. That's really very important to a Peruvian to do that when they give something away, to show that they put time and effort into it. And that's what they're doing up on the left, and that's something she did all the time. And then the picture of the young ladies on the right. Next, please. These are just various pictures. On the left, Wendy wanted to show the size of the corn. We think Iowa and Nebraska corn is hot stuff. That corn is really tall. Now, that's a little guy on the left there, because Victor, he's about here on me. He's just a small man. But that's what that is. The one on the right is a former student with 2 children. She came to the house that last day, and it was sweet, but difficult. But she gave me a scarf that she had made. Lower left-hand corner, Fortunato. He was a married student. And I love all my students, but the married students, they're always a little older. They're always a little more mature. And they kind of had, I don't know how I say this lovingly, they just kind of have their act together a little bit more. The young people have a lot of energy, but they're not always focused. But these married guys, they just are more mature. And I really hit it off with him, this guy. He's going into the ministry. Before I left, he came up and explained what he's going to be doing in this area and his plan, and it was just wonderful. Lower right-hand corner is Javier. He came to visit, say goodbye, and we got to see his new little one. And that's only a couple weeks old, too, that little one. Next. Kids Club. Wendy does Kids Club all the time, and that's just showing the big fish, the Noah story. Or, I'm sorry, Jonah story. Next. We always used to play, they used to like to do American stuff. We'd play flag football. Baseball was the one that really kind of took off. And with my ankle, I got an ankle replacement coming. I was permanent pitcher, so I didn't do a lot of running. But they love baseball. They just love it. But trying to, infield fly rule or tagging up doesn't work. You could explain that for days, and it just doesn't register that when you hit it and somebody catches it, this person here can't still run. It was really hard to explain. But they had a blast. They just really enjoyed it. And that shows some of the baseball players. But we also have another one, I think on this next one. Yeah, on the last day, some former students came back. There was a get-together for Wendy and I, and so the group was bigger this day, and we played baseball and just had a wonderful time. Next. And different people were responsible for socials on campus. At the end of every 3-week period, there was an activity. They called it a social for the students. It was on, so a module would last 3 weeks, and then you'd have, that weekend, that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you didn't have any homework because this class was over and this one hadn't started. So, it was like one of those Fridays was just wonderful. That Friday was special. And so Wendy oftentimes would organize something, and this one she organized was, the social was just Cowboy Day. And so people would dress up as cowboys, and she had the prison, carcel there is Spanish for prison, and they had to say the verse to get out, just things she always thought of. So anyways, next one, please. And this was my social. This is the kind of thing that I always like doing. There's Marco to my right. But we would go on paseos, kind of field trips, and we would ride our bikes to a town. We would meet in the square, have some food that somebody had come along that would have brought it in a car. We'd have a little lunch and then pass out tracts, and they would go person to person and just share the gospel. It was really pretty neat. It was very, very special time. Now, the girls didn't go on this one, but they went to the square in Utabamba. And those of you that know the square in Utabamba is a beautiful thing, lots of people, and you can do a lot of sharing there. And so the girls went there. And so that's Paseo. It's a field trip in evangelism. Next. This just shows Wendy with the girls there at Utabamba. That's kind of a picture by the square. Another picture in the square. I think it's probably in front of the church, the Catholic church there. Next. These are some things that we like to do with the students too. They didn't eat on weekends because most of them were starting to go to their Christian service. They call it obra practica. So they would leave on Friday or Saturday to get to their church to do their Christian work, their Christian ministry work. And so they didn't serve meals, so we like to serve a meal on Saturday morning, and we did. Not every Saturday, but we tried to, and that's me making pancakes and them eating. Next, please. And this is a ministry that has been ongoing for a long time. I mean, many years, maybe 15, 18 years, that when the word got out, and I know you guys helped, with tithes, when the word got out that we needed tithes, we would get a lot of tithes. Sometimes a lot of tithes, 2 suitcases going down, and you just don't have enough space. But we got them all down there over time. It took us a while, but we'd get the tithes down there, and the boys would get to pick 1 or 2. But then somebody said, you know what they said? Girls don't wear ties. So that's not right. And so what happened is that we got in the tradition of bringing scarves down. And the girls love those, those kind of things. And they just, and that's what the center picture is. And that was just so much fun because they were so appreciative of ties and scarves. Next, please. And this was our goodbye. This is a little bit of a tearjerker. But yeah, it was just really special. Next. Yeah, the word in the beginning, it's really tricky to translate. If you know Spanish, it means los, it's plural for the, but it's an interesting word that I still don't, even though all the years, I still don't fully appreciate it. But it says, quiero means I want, or queremos means we want. And it's a funny, it translates so unique, because in English it translates we want, or the we wanters. It translates that, but it has special meaning to Peruvians. It's like saying, Then in the lower right-hand corner, maybe some of you have heard of I don't know if you've ever heard of a Pachamaca when you were down there, Doug. There's a thing called a Pachamanca, which means earth oven in Quechua. And what they're doing is there's a big hole there, and they dig in, and they line it with rocks. They put all kinds of meat, literally 30, 40, 50 pounds of meat, lamb. It's really a kind of a big shindig is what it is. And then they put leaves in there, and they start a fire, and then they cover it up with dirt, and they let it sit for hours and hours. They take the dirt off, they take the leaves off, and the meat is really pretty special. They marinate it, too, with some local stuff, and it tastes wonderful. But anyways, they had a Pachamanca for us, and it was very special. Next. And that was it. And there I am, back to the real world, teaching away, doing a Zoom, and it was great. It's great teaching Zoom by Zoom. It's not like being there, but it's good. Next. I think this is the last, what I wanted to leave you with, Hebrews 10, 23 to 25. Let us hold fast the profession of our faith without wavering, for he is faithful that promised. And let us consider one another to provoke unto love and to good works, not forsaking the assembly of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as you see the day approaching. And the day is approaching. And so I just wanted to conclude by just reading this. Westwood Heights Baptist Church has been a tremendous blessing to us in the seminary. I guess I've already said some of this. Your generous financial Your generous financial support, prayers, and encouragement enabled a variety of ministries on campus. The books, the buildings, the chapel upgrade, just so many things that you've blessed us with. But we wanted to leave you with some prayer requests. The seminary is going through some very significant some transitions. It's been, when I went down there this year, the first day I got down there, out of the blue, they asked me to be the interim director of the seminary. And I had no idea that was going to happen. I was looking forward to teaching and all that. But they asked me to be interim director of the seminary. And so I did. I said, okay. And I got along with the Peruvian pastors well. I got along with the missionaries, of course. And we had some tough times. We had some tough meetings. They shared their heart. And there's some things that we just weren't tuned into like we should have. And I'll be the first to admit it. And I think Tim would be too. We could have done better along the way in incorporating the Peruvians into the seminary hierarchy, in having more say in the seminary. They felt like we didn't trust them. They felt like it just wasn't working. And one of the things that we saw is that the support from the area pastors wasn't what it should have been, because they just didn't feel a part of it. And I know I'm just giving you a little bit, but you deserve to hear it. I mean, you've been supporting the seminary and us. But lots of good things came out of those hard meetings. And one of the things that happened was they formed a governing body, 5 Peruvian pastors that love the seminary, that taught at the seminary, that send their students to the seminary, are on this board, and 5 missionaries. Tim and I are there, and a person named Aaron Cockrell, John Stillwell, and Caleb Stein. So, and they wanted 5 and 5. The Peruvians wanted 5 and 5. So we have this governing board that is working together, and the interim director, the long-term interim director through the end of the year is a man named Pastor Percy, who is a pastor at Calvary Baptist Church in Cusco, and he's been the dean of studies at our seminary for 15 years. The guy knows the seminary, and he's stepped up to being the director, which is a blessing. And even the short time I was down there this year, you could see with the meetings, they just kind of rallied around it. They felt like, whoa, we're working together on this. This is good stuff. And so when I left, it was such a good feeling, but it wasn't finished. And it's in the process of moving forward. We're having Zoom meetings, and we're working on salaries and all that sort of thing. But the transition is taking place, and it's moving in a very positive direction. And I can't wait to look back in a year or two from now and say, yes, the Lord has worked there, and that's why this happened, and so on. And then I just would, so if you would pray for the seminary, that transition is still going on. Who's going to be the director? Pastor Pedersey, who's the interim director, does not want to be the full-time director, which I think is a wise decision. But so somebody else is going to come in and take the director's position. But Wendy and I, are considered, what's next for us? We're getting old. I'm a tick away from 70, and that's the mandatory retirement years for Baptist Missions. But you could also get an extension. I'm sure we could have if we really, applied for it and all that. But all things considered, it just seemed right. This interim director thing, it just seemed like it was a good finale. But one of the things that so convinced me that this was the right move, I'm not saying the ankle replacement surgery coming up shortly, it didn't have a little bit in it too, but Marco, I've always had, and I'm not saying this is, you can go to Scripture and you can read this, but I believe in this biblical principle. The principle of you should have, at some time in your life, you should have a Barnabas taking care of you. And Paul had a Barnabas, and so Barnabas was the mentor, and Paul was the mentee. And I know we don't think of Paul as a mentee very often, but he was early on. You read the book of Acts. Barnabas helped Paul. He helped Paul get his foot in the apostolic door, so to speak. And that was special. And then, of course, Paul, what he did with Timothy. he brought Timothy along in a very, very special way that was life-changing for Timothy. And we should have those people in our lives. We should have somebody, then the one I didn't mention is a Silas. We should have somebody that we can have help us. And then we become the helper someday. And we should have somebody that's a peer, like a Paul and a Silas. And I could preach on that because that was a wonderful time together they had on Paul's missionary journey. And then we should also be thinking consciously, maybe not formally, but consciously about helping a young person. Use those 30, 40 years that you've had loving the Lord and serving the Lord and help somebody that's younger understand that and appreciate that and bring them along. And so anyways, I said that and I got a little off track, is because that's what I thought about Marco. I thought, Marco and I were working together. I'm the old guy. He's 25. I'm 69. He was willing to learn. He was willing to, we encouraged him to get his master's, and some people from churches that we know help him financially because he couldn't afford it. He couldn't have afforded that. But anyways, Marco is ready to step up and take the classes. And I was always thinking, how can I leave if there isn't somebody to cover my classes? I didn't want to do that. But Marco showed the ability and the desire and the willingness to serve the Lord that just said to me, this is a no-brainer. He's going to take over and he'll be fine. Another missionary is going to take the book of Acts because he really loves the book of Acts and he's a church planner. But Marco's going to do the other 4. So anyways, I guess what I'm just asking is what's next for Wendy and I. One of the things we're talking with Baptist Mid-Missions is that sometimes churches call Baptist Mid-Missions and say, hey, could you send somebody to talk to our older folks? Because everybody has, and it's appropriate, everybody has a plan and a program and messages from the pulpit to help their young people get it to see if they want to go into missions. And that's the way it should be, and that's wonderful. But an area that's neglected is the baby boomers who are getting up there in years and still got the health, but they have so many skills, they have so many experiences that the Lord could use that, and they have some finances. Some of them don't have to work, and they could travel, or they could, go see some kind of project that's going on and be a part of it financially or help. And so we're talking with Baptist Missions about doing that. If a church calls them and says, hey, we have an older Sunday school class that would like somebody to come and talk about how older people can be involved in missions. And Wendy and I we'd just love to do that. We'd share our story, plus, the resources of Baptist Missions are really pretty impressive in the ways that they could tie older folks in. So anyways, if you would pray for Wendy and I as to what's next in our life, besides, we're serving in our sending church, Calvary Baptist Church in Walnut, Iowa. We're going to continue to do that, but we want to see if there's anything else after. Well, I know Brother Omar wants to get up here and do prayer requests, so I'm going to say, if you have any questions, please, I'll stay after any time you want. If I said something that said, oh, I wonder what he meant by that, and I didn't get a chance to finish it off, please, I'll stay and we can talk. But I'm going to close with a word of prayer, and then Brother Omar will come up. Well, Lord, thank you so much for the time together. Thank you for the blessing that Westwood Heights Baptist Church has been to the seminary and the Watleys and us, and just the different connections down there has just been unbelievable. And we thank them so much. And we're changing. Things are happening in our life personally. Things are happening in the life of the seminary. And we would just ask that this church would continue to pray and lift us up as individuals and as a seminary, so that we can continue to serve you and how you that in the way that you'd have us. But Lord, thank you so much for all that this church has done. In your Son's precious name, amen.
Amen. Thank you for that. All right. Are there any other prayer requests? If we'll take out your prayer bulletin, anything to add to what's already on here? Obviously, add the work there in Peru. It's good to see some of the fruit from our church's investment in the ministry there over the last number of years. So continue to pray for those and those church plants and everything that is a fruit of the ministry there. And then for the Campbell's future also, and the future of the seminary there. So, anything else? Yes.
Joshua's friend, Dave here, has skin cancer.
Okay.
Joshua's friend's dad.
Okay. His name is Dave Hare? Okay. All right. Yes. Okay. All right. Amen. Chad. You going to be out of town? Okay. All right. Any others? If not, let's pray. Lord, we thank you for the encouragement that we've received tonight of being able to see all that you, or a little bit of what you have done there in Peru with these pastors and church plants through the seminary there. We thank you for how you've worked in people's lives and are continuing to work there. I pray that you would be with the leadership, the transition of the seminary there, that you would give them wisdom and united and peaceful heart as they minister together for you. Lord, I pray that you would solve any conflicts and any awkward situations that might come as this transition progresses, that you would work in that so that this would be only a step forward in the work of the seminary there, that they could continue to reach more and more Peruvians for you. And as those graduates go out into ministry, that would continue to spread. Lord, I pray for all of our missionaries, that you would just provide for them financially and spiritually and in any way that they need. I pray that you would provide and work in their ministries and help us to help them. Lord, I pray for our people here in our church, many issues that perhaps we don't even bring up, but that each one of us has cares and worries and things that are going on. I pray that you would comfort us and strengthen us. I pray that you would be with Josh's friend's dad, Dave Hare, as he's got skin cancer. I pray that you'd give the doctors their wisdom. Help be with Chad as he'll be out of town. Give him safety. Also, Pastor, as he's out of town, give them safety and a safe return to us. Lord, I pray also for the doctors who treated baby Christina. Lord, I pray that you would work through this and that as they'll be sending out these letters, that you would work in the doctors' hearts. Lord, open their hearts to the message of the gospel, and that there would be obvious spiritual benefit, and that people would, doctors and nurses would be brought to you through this. Lord, I pray that you would be with us as a church, watch over us the rest of this week, and bring us all back here safely on Sunday. I pray in your name. Amen. Thank you all. Have a good week.